Hello everyone, Lappiz here, and welcome to another video where I'll finally be 100%ing Hollow Knight. And yes, that does mean getting every single achievement that I didn't get in my original playthrough, which is honestly quite a challenge with how difficult some of them are. For example, beating every single boss in the 5th Pantheon. But before we get into things, I want to start with why. Why on earth do I want to 100% Hollow Knight, especially after all this time? Well, it all started back in 2018 to 2019, I forgot exactly when, but one of the streamers I followed on Twitch just so happened to be playing this little game called, wouldn't you guess it, Hollow Knight, a game I somehow never heard of previously considering just how immensely popular it is. And after watching for a little bit, I started getting really interested in it since I've never actually played any Metroidvanias before or really paid any attention to them beforehand with the wildly different kinds of games I was into, so pretty much everything I was seeing was new to me. And because it looked so incredibly fun and had such a beautiful art style, I pretty much bought it immediately to play myself. And honestly, it's probably one of the best decisions I've made because after playing it more and more and discovering everything it had to offer, I quickly fell in love with this game, making it easily one of my favorite games ever. With that being said though, you might be wondering, why did I not do everything back then? Well, it's the same thing that always happens. Life happened. I moved on, new games came out, things just happened. But honestly, besides not beating the 5th Pantheon, I did everything I could possibly do in one playthrough and was honestly satisfied putting the game down for a bit. The problem though is that I always intended to go back and 100% the game, especially with the reveal of Silksong back in 2019. But something always got in the way and time went by, so it started to become harder and harder to actually commit to essentially relearning the whole game at that point. But with the most recent reveal of Silksong at the Nintendo Direct for the Switch 2, I figured it was about time to relearn Hollow Knight and finally 100% it before Silksong hopefully releases sometime this year. So let's just get straight into things by going over the remaining achievements that I have left to get, starting from the easiest. First off, we got our side objectives that we can do once in a playthrough, which are leave Zote to die all alone, banish the Grim Troop from Hollow Nest, and sadly slay the Nailsmith with the Pure Nail, which is a bit of a pain since we have to go and collect all the pale ore, but not too much since we kind of have to do that anyway for the other achievements. Then we have our speedrun achievements of beating the game in 10 hours, which sounds easy enough, then 5 hours, which is a bit worrying, but it's not in Still Soul mode, so it should be fine. Plus we can knock them both out if we just focus on the 5 hours. But then we start getting into some of the more tricky achievements, like beating the game in 20 hours while getting 100%, which I am a bit worried about since I don't exactly remember where everything is, and backtracking would take up a lot of time, especially if we do it a lot. But if you thought that was bad, or not, I mean 20 hours is probably nothing to some speedruns, it doesn't compare to our next two, which are beat the game in Still Soul mode, so beat the game without dying, and the one I'm not looking forward to whatsoever, which is beat the game in Still Soul mode while getting 100%. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this sounds straight up impossible since I'm not some kind of god gamer, and I don't believe in myself whatsoever. But besides all that, there's still one achievement left, and well, you all know what it is since I mentioned it earlier, and that is beating every single boss in a row in the 5th Pantheon, which honestly I don't think is the hardest achievement here since we can fail pretty much all we want. While if I died 80% through the Still Path runs, I would probably just cry on the spot. So in total, we have 9 achievements left to get, and my plan of attack is pretty simple, and that is to just knock out as many of them as possible at once. Since we can do a lot of them at the same time, like the 10 and 5 hour speedrun while doing it in Still Soul mode. That knocks out 3 of them just like that. Then we can do the side objectives in our 100% 20 hour speedrun while in Still Soul mode to knock out 5. And then finally, we'll end things off by returning to my original game save to beat every boss and ascend to the top of the 5th Pantheon. So, with all that being said, let's finally start to 100% Hollow Knight by beginning with our base speedrun achievements. Now, since we're starting with the speedrun achievements, the first thing we have to figure out are the main objectives we need to finish the game. So up first is obviously getting our main movement, so the dash from Hornet in Green Path and the Mantis Claw in the Fungal Waste. Then we need a whole bunch of Geo, 1800 in fact, for the Lantern, because we're gonna need to go and get our Crystal Dash from the Crystal Peak, since we're not gonna go out of our way to get the ability to swim in Acid. This will probably be towards the end of the run though, since we'll be gathering Geo as we run through the game. Then we need the Dream Nail so we can actually progress through the game. This also means killing the 3 Dreamers across the map in Deep Nest, City of Tears and the Fog Canyon. And finally, our last objective is of course the final boss. There probably is some other stuff, but I do want to clarify that I am saying all of this before I actually start attempting my run. Also, I should say that we're not going for the double jump, since I know for a fact that you don't need it to complete the game. We can just utilize the wall jump, dash, and pogo off of things for pretty much everything. But with that being said, we can finally start attempting our runs. Now, the route we start off with is pretty simple and the same as any run. Defeat the False Knight so we can talk to the Shaman and get our Spirit Blast. We also can't forget to rest at this specific bench, since it'll actually come in handy later. But now that we have the Spirit Blast, it's off to Green Path so we can get our dash. Unfortunately, I can't do the trick where you use your spirit to make the jump where you first see Hornet, no matter how many times I tried, so I have to go all the way around Green Path, which isn't the worst. It's only like 7 to 10 minutes, which is fine since we aren't going for a world record, but it's still a bit of a pain knowing that I can skip essentially 90% of the area. So after dealing with Hornet, we pick up the dash only to quit out immediately because of how the saving works in Hollow Knight. You see, it pretty much saves after you pick up any item, and just like how you respawn at the last bench you rested at, you also load in at the last bench. So we can just skip going through Green Path again, which saves us a lot of time, especially since we can get to the Mantis Claw quicker from here by just going down from the crossroad entrance till we reach the Mantis Claw. I do want to say though that I actually did go the normal way at first, through the jellyfish area, but luckily I did remember this way on the second run, so I didn't actually use the bench trick at first, but with that we got one of our main items. Now, this is where my lack of knowledge came to bite me in the ass, because for some reason I thought that you had to go to the City of Tears and listen to Hornet's dialogue at the fountain to actually progress the story, and well, no you don't have to do that at all. So I was pretty stumped at what to do next and figured I would just go all the way to the crossroads to activate the Dreamers. But of course, they aren't actually there. They're in the resting areas just to the right, which we don't actually have access to yet. So I figured the only way left was through the sewers past the Dung Defender. But when I got there on the next run, mind you, I was greeted by needing a key to access them. Oh, that's right, I need a key! So it was at this point where I just decided to look at a map to try and rehash my memory, which actually did end up working because I was reminded of the trams around the map, something I honestly completely forgot about since you only use them like 3 times maybe, but to actually use them you need a tram pass, and luckily I did remember where it was, and that's in the top left of Deep Nest. So I hatched a new plan, and that was to just go to Deep Nest after getting the Mantis Claw, but not through the way you would typically go, which is through the Mantis Lords, but actually the secret way, since all we have to do is keep going down until we reach the hot spring, which just so happens to get us another bench, which will be useful since the tram is just to the right, and we can just reset right after we get the tram pass. After taking the tram though, we end up in the Ancient Basin, which we aren't gonna be in for long at all since we just dash our way to the right over the giant spike pit and end up where you would initially fall down after defeating the Dung Defender. But since we have dash and wall jump, we can easily make it up there after we pogo off the first set of spikes, landing us on the right side of the City of Tears. Now, from here, we're just going to go straight to King's Station and go back to Dirtmouth, since I didn't unlock the Crossroads Station. At least the first time I did this, since the tram to the resting grounds is just right above Grud's, which we have to deal with anyway to rescue Sly so we can get the lantern. While they're here, we can also talk to the bug lady, whose name I always forget, and get the shaman charm, which lets our blast do more damage, which we really need since it's gonna be our main source of damage anyway. Then, after taking the final tram and getting the dream nail, it's now time to deal with the dreamers, starting with Hera, because we never rested at any bench since we were in Deep Nest, so we may as well go deal with Hera. But there is one problem with this. You see, along the way, there is actually this really dark place, which typically you would need the lantern for, but you can get through here without it. The only problem is, I don't know the route at all. So it was at this point where I took a bite, the forbidden fruit, and looked at a Still Soul speedrun, specifically this run by Fireborn. And I say forbidden fruit because I would keep coming back to this video whenever I was at a loss of what to do and needed a little bit of guidance. Also, can I just quickly say how happy I was when I found out that I was practically taking the same route as like a professional speedrunner by figuring all of this so far out on my own? Like, honestly, how truly amazing is it that I figured this much out on my own? But anyway, with their help, I was able to learn the route and make it past this dark area and onto Hera's spider nest. This is where I ran into another problem though, and his name is Jimmy. But he ain't so bad, since we can just spirit blast him, then go below to get some more soul, and while we're at it, pick up a hollow nest seal, which we do need because, you know, we need Geo. But after dealing with Jimmy, we continue further in until we meet his brother Jim, who can go suck on a pinecone, since we can't cheese him like earlier with there not being anywhere to get soul nearby. So we just have to stand in front of him, wait for him to wind up his attack, then attack him and dash away. Then we can just rinse and repeat that until we get him and finally finish off our first dreamer, Hera. After dealing with Hera, we're just gonna go take the station right next to her to the City of Tears to deal with our next dreamer, Lurian. Before we're able to ascend the tower though, we gotta open the way to the fountain since we are gonna need to come back through here later. Then we gotta ascend the tower in the first place. And it's pretty simple, all we have to do is make this pogo jump, which was something I actually practiced quite a bit when I originally played, since I was eventually gonna do the speedrun achievements and I knew about this jump. But anyway, after this though, I ran into the next problem, and that is the lever skip, which really doesn't skip that much, but I didn't realize that this was only available on an older version. So I just had to go to the left and drop down into the fun room. And I say this because I didn't know what what was in the fun room the first time I actually went in there. Oh, you're kidding me. After ascending the tower though, we run into one of the hardest bits of the run, which are the Watcher Knights. Now, when I originally played Hollow Knight, this was one of the bosses I got stuck on the longest and hate with a passion. So this was not a fun time and they killed a lot of runs. So what can I do? Well, we can get rid of one of the knights by going to a secret room above and dropping a chandelier, therefore taking one of them out of fight. But besides that, there's not much I can do except just learn the fight and make sure I blast both of them at the same time with the spirit. But besides that, I can also cheese it by resting at the bench beforehand and just quitting out whenever I'm dropped to 1 health. And yeah, I know it's cheesy because Still Soul is supposed to be 1 life, but you know what? I don't care. Like, this is hard for me. But anyway, eventually I did get so good at the fight that I could first try them on a run pretty consistently, which is great. So after dealing with them, we can go and finish off our second dreamer. And now that we've dealt with our second dreamer, the next thing we need to do is go to the tower to the left and sell all our seals so we can then go back to Dirtmouth and buy the lantern to go and get the crystal dash from the Crystal Peaks, which is really easy since it just involves some honestly pretty simple platforming. But after getting the crystal dash, it's time to reset again back to Dirtmouth and make our way to the final dreamer, Monomon, in the Fog Canyon. This is also where we need the crystal heart to get over a lot of the acid, especially the first place we use it. And I will admit, I had to look at the speedrun by Fireborn again because I forgot my way, and how to get there in the first place, which is not fun. And I'm pretty sure in the final run I did, I had to reset at least once because I screwed up the jump that bad. Actually, I think it was twice. Yeah, I kept falling in the acid. So that was fun. But luckily, the actual boss in the Teacher's Archives isn't actually hard at all. It just took way longer than it should have, since you have to rely on getting in good position and then having to wait for Coral to stagger it. So it's just really boring fight, and I died way too many times to it. More than I'd like to admit. But yeah, anyway, that's it. That's the final dreamer done, leaving only the final boss left, who I was stuck on for so long. It was actually driving me insane. Luckily though, there is a bench right outside the room to reset, but even with that, he still ended up killing me so much due to his 2 damage moves and a lot of overconfidence on my part, to say the least. I definitely messed up a lot. But you can, honestly, you can easily cheese the fight by just pogoing on him, which I ended up doing a lot, and then using your Spirit Blast. But after many failed attempts and resets, the time finally arrived. Is this it? Yes! Oh! I did it! Yes! Oh! I did it! Screw you, Hollow Knight! I shall now take your burden, and I shall be the one trapped here. I did it. Oh my god, And with that, I've finally managed to beat the game in under 5 hours, while in Still Soul mode, which I honestly thought would take longer, since this was only on my 25th attempt with a total time of 1 hour and 49 minutes. But I will say, it probably would have taken me way longer, like double or triple the amount of attempts, if I didn't reset before I was about to die, especially when I was stuck on a boss like the Watcher Knights or the final boss. Also, remember how I said it was only 9 achievements? Well, turns out it was actually 10 because I completely forgot about the default ending, which I never originally got, since once you get the Void Heart, you actually get locked out of it. So it turns out it was 4 achievements instead, which was a nice added surprise, to say the least. And honestly, even though this challenge was difficult at first, especially since I was relearning the game at the same time, this was still a really fun challenge. Like, especially with seeing my time improve each run and going through areas quicker and quicker, like Deep Nest, especially the dark area, for example. Not to mention starting to do the Watcher Knights without resetting, which I'm still proud of, cause I hate that boss, especially when you have no upgrades at all. Also, one last thing I want to mention before we move on, because we still have a lot to do, is that because the run only took almost 2 hours, I could have easily gone out of my way to get more stuff to help with the run, but I was just purely focused on finishing the game as quick as possible, so I did in fact make it way harder on myself than needed to be, but at least I did it. I mean, I could have gone out of my way to get like a Pale Lord to get another nail upgrade or something, just honestly anything to make the run easier. So with the Still Soul run under 5 hours being complete, we can now move on to 100%ing the game under 20 hours. But before that, we do have to go over 2 things, starting with what actually goes towards our total percentage. First, we have all the equipment, like the Mantis Claw, which comes to 14%. Then our nail upgrades, including the Dream Nail, comes to 7%. All the bosses at 21%, vessels and masks at 7%. Nail arts, Dreamers and Colosseum at 3% each, so 9%. Spells at 6%. And finally, our biggest contributor, which is all the charms coming in at a whopping 36%, getting us to 100%. But this is only the base game. With the free DLC, we got the Grim Troop offering 6%, Lifeblood, which only counts the Hive Knight at 1%, and finally Godmaster with the final 5% for a total of 112%. Now, the second thing we have to discuss is how difficult this is going to be, purely because I don't remember where most of the stuff is, like all the charms, pale ore, and honestly just the general map, since I only bothered on remembering the general path of the speedrun, and this could lead to disaster with how much backtracking I would potentially have to do. So, what's the plan? Well, just from a speedrun, we already have a total of 19%, so I figured it would be simple to just continue our run from there, since we still have about 18 hours left. Unfortunately though, I didn't play for a week after the speedrun just to like reset myself and take a break. So instead of doing some warm-up runs, I failed in quite the pathetic way, and just like the dumbass I am, I was actually recording my second monitor at the time, so it didn't capture this humiliating moment. But don't worry, with my excellent skills, here's a drawing I did depicting my untimely doom. Isn't it beautiful? So that does mean that I have to restart from the beginning, and I will admit that relearning where everything is did have me worried and would take up a lot of time. So I did play while having this map on my left monitor, just for some assistance when I needed it. But with all that being said, we can finally get on to the route I took for this challenge. So strap in, because this is gonna take a while. So the route we take starts off the same as our 5-hour run, except for picking up Fury of the Fallen charm in the starting area and grabbing any grubs and geo we can along the way. Our route only starts to vary, however, once we get to Green Path, since this time we're actually going to make that trick jump that I've kept failing in my 5-hour speedruns by luring this flying bug into place. Something I really wish I thought of earlier. But anyway, we're going this way because it's gonna end up saving us a lot of time from backtracking through that underground area. Since we're going to go through here again later, but backwards, since we still need to get the Thorns of Agony charm and the grubs that were originally along that path. Then we're going to pass right through the Fog Canyon, since there's literally nothing in this place, which is honestly really odd when you look at the rest of the game and a bit disappointing. But anyway, we want to go through the Fog Canyon since we also need to unlock every Stagger station, also because we want to pass through the fungal waste from this way to get a charm notch from the little cage fight with the big mushrooms, and so we can go talk to Leg Eater, who we can buy the Fragile Heart charm from, which just gives us more health. But it helps so much and makes the run incredibly comfy since we can afford to make a lot, and I mean a lot of mistakes. It saved my ass so many times. Then we're gonna do what we did in my very first attempt, and that is to get the Mantis Claws and head straight to the City of Tears, but this time I actually know what I'm doing and not just going to talk to Hornet. And that is to upgrade our nail, since it's basically free, and then go to the first tower so we can do two things, which is sell everything I've collected so far, so Wanderer's Journals and whatnot, and so we can ascend the building and deal with the Soul Tyrant to get the Descending Dark spell, while also collecting everything else that is in the tower. After all that though, we actually end up having enough money to buy a couple of things, so it's off to slay Gruz and rescue Slayer. Also, just like in 5-hour speedrun, we're gonna talk to a Charm Lady and buy the Shaman Stone, but also one Charm Notch, so we can still have Fragile Heart. Then, because we still need to buy stuff, it's off to Dirtmouth so we can buy the Lantern. And while we're in Dirtmouth, we may as well go talk to Grubfather and claim all our current rewards for the grubs we've collected. And because we did miss a few grubs and whatnot, we're gonna grab those before heading to the Crystal Peak. Now, we aren't actually going to be in the Crystal Peaks for too long, since we're basically just making a beeline to the Crystal Heart for the dash, while making sure to not forget the shopkeeper's key on the way, since it'll be annoying to backtrack for it, and it'll really help us out later on. After getting the dash, we're gonna head downwards to grab some grubs and geo, while heading towards the Shaman Trail here to upgrade our Descending Dark spell, since it's really useful, and well, there's no point in not getting it. After that, we're just gonna drop down into the resting grounds so we can get the Dream Nail and the Dream Shield Charm before unlocking the station Then we're gonna go back to the City of Tears to head into the sewers, since we did pick up the key earlier from under the storerooms. But before we do head to the sewers, we are gonna sell some more stuff. Also, little side note, this is also the only normal key we use for the whole run, which is a bit surprising since when I originally played, I remember keys being a lot more important, but oh well. The first thing we have to do after gaining the sewers is making sure to rest at this sewer bench on the left side specifically, since we're gonna end up resetting here a few times with how much the sewers have to offer us, and it's gonna save us a lot of time. Our main objective from here is to get the Monarch Wings. So we are gonna have to go to the right and deal with the Dung Defender, who is a really easy boss when we have the Descending Dark spell, since we can just knock him out of the ground, which is honestly so useful. I wish we could do it to his dream fight, but whatever. Afterwards though, before dropping down, I do unlock the Fountain Door in the City of Tears, even though I don't really need to at this point. It's more just in case I fail and I need to reset before dropping down to the Ancient Basin. Before we descend further into the Ancient Basin though, it's worth venturing to the left just a bit first so we can get our first Pale Ore, which is really going to help us out since 1, we need it in first place, and 2, well, you'll find out in a bit. Then we just have to make our way to a Monarch Wings, which is a bit of a pain since we have to make it past these big spitting boys. I forgot what they're called. They honestly aren't that bad to deal with, just a little bit annoying. But after that, we do have to fight the Broken Vessel, who is also a really easy boss. But honestly, most of the bosses in Hollow Knight are, especially depending on your progression. But with that, we finally have our hands on the Monarch Wings. Now, before we reset to a bench, it is worth getting the grub right next to the wings, since it serves as a little tutorial to the wings, and backtracking here would be an absolute pain. Then it's off to our second location in the sewers, which is Yzma's Tier, since it's nearby and we have everything to get to it now. Then we're going to ascend to the City of Tears through the nearby exit, just so we can get 2 things, being the King Station and our next nail upgrade, which we really need now since it will allow us to one-shot our next boss, Fluke Mom's little summons, making the fight just a piece of cake, and netting us the Fluke Nest charm, which honestly I've never actually used in my entire playtime. Like I've just never used it. I just didn't see a point. Then we're gonna reset, even though it's not that far, and head through the left side of the sewers to the Fungal Waste while collecting everything on the way, like this face mask, where we're gonna head to Deep Nest. So that means dealing with the Mantis Lords, but also getting the nearby charm and rescuing Breda, since she is going to grant us a Godmaster shard later on when we go back to Dirtmouth. After we deal with the Mantis Lords, which is one of my favourite fights in the game by the way, it's just so fun, we're going to grab their charm, the Mark of Pride, and then head to Deep Nest, where we're going to do pretty much everything there is, like the Tram Pass, Galleon, Grubs, and our first streamer, Hera. The only things I didn't do here is Nosk, since it's near the tram station and easy to access, so it can be saved for later, and get him a Weaver charm, because I just completely forgot about it since it's just hidden behind a wall to access it. But now that we're done with Deep Nest, since it's honestly a really quick area if you know your way around, we can now head to Kingdom's Edge. But not before going back to the Ancient Basin and unlocking the hidden station, since I forgot to grab it earlier while I was here. After we enter Kingdom Station though, we're actually going to do everything in the Hive first, since 1, it's a small area, 2, has plenty of geo, and 3, we can deal with the Hive Knight and grab the Hive Blood charm, which is going to really help us out later when we go to the White Palace. On a little side note though, this is also where the run fell apart a bit, since I had to go build my new bed, which took way too long, like 7 or 8 hours. It was bad, like really bad. I don't really want to talk about it, but I've been sleeping so much better now, like, oh my god. Here's a pic of my bed now, it's great. You can rate my setup as well if you want, but because it was like 1 AM when I continued playing, all I did was wander around Kingdom's Edge collecting stuff. But I was in a complete daze the whole time and didn't remember like any of my main objectives, like I even forgot to look at the map. So I just decided to call it there for the day. After getting some much deserved rest though, and I mean seriously, if you're gonna do this challenge, or just a 5-hour speedrun, just make sure to take a break, clear your mind every now and then. But anyway, Our next goal was as clear as day now, and that was to focus on getting the nail arts, since 1, we're in Kingdom's Edge, and 2, it's about time that we head to the Howling Cliffs anyway. So first things first, we head to the bottom right of the Kingdom's Edge to get our first nail art, which honestly, I don't use at all since I always forget about the nail arts and attacking normally just feels better anyway. But anyway, we're going to head to the Tower of Love and open the shortcut just so we don't have to circle all the way around again, and head to the Elegant Door since I did forget to mention earlier that I did end up buying the Elegant Key, plus I forgot to go here earlier and it's really worth it so we can upgrade our little Spirit Blast, which is probably most used spell in the game besides Howling Wraiths, which we don't have yet. Then it's off to Greenpath to get our second nail art and making sure not to fail here like last time, which, yes, I'm still upset about. Then we're gonna reset back to the station and head to the Howling Cliffs while grabbing my Boulder Shell charm on my way and getting the Leave Zote for Dead achievement, since we never saved him here. After getting to the cliffs though, we're just going to do what little there is to do here, which is activate the Grim Troop, get Joni's response charm, our final nail art, and finally fight one of the best bosses in the game, Gorb. Then, because we have so much money at this point, it's time to go on a shopping spree and buy everything we possibly can from Sly, the Wayward Charm from Isolde, since we don't really need the map at all, or at least at this point. Then, go talk to the Grub Father, get some more Geo, and then go to the Bug Lady in the Crossroads and buy everything that we can from her, since everything she offers is useful, except her final little charm thing, which I honestly don't even know what it does besides summon her when you're sitting down. It's annoying, to say the least. Then it's off to continuing our progression by going to the resting grounds to deal with Zero, or however you say his name, and get the Soul Eater charm, before heading back to the Crossroads once again so we can head to the Fog Canyon, while also dealing with the Brooding Morlock on the way so we can, 1, deal with it, and 2, get whatever it's guarding. I think it was a face mask shard, whatever. Anyway, we're gonna do this because we're gonna head to the second Dreamer, because it's close by and it just crosses it off our list. After dealing with Monomon though, we're going to go back to Dirtmouth and start the Grim Troop, since we have access to pretty much everywhere at this point, and we do have to do it anyway to get the Banishment achievement. While dealing with our first little Grim in Crystal Peak though, we're also going to do 3 other things that we didn't do last time, which are grab the Deep Focus charm, deal with the Crystal Guardian, who is probably the easiest boss in the game, and finally, ascend to the tippy top to get yet another Pale Ore. Then from here, I decided to go talk to Leg Eater to get the other charms, just so I don't have to worry about Geo again, aside from unlocking the Colosseum fights, remaining station, and the Fountain in the Abyss. Then I just decided to finish Deep Nest from here, so getting the Weaver Song charm and dealing with Nosk, so I can get yet another Pale Ore. If you couldn't tell, this is where I went a bit all over the place since I had a bunch of little things to do, but I did end up getting my groove back on and went to upgrade the nail once again so I can head to the Colosseum and deal with the first and second trial for a Charm Knot and a Pale Ore, since the third one only gives you Geo, which we don't even need at this point. Like, we have so much. And while we're in Kingdom's Edge, we should also go deal with Hornet again so we can get the King's Brand, since we are at the point where we need to access the Abyss. But before that, I did decide that we may as well go deal with the final Dreamer, since the Watcher Knights are a complete cakewalk at this point, with our nail and spirit upgrades. After dealing with Lorien though, it was actually time to get the final upgrade for our nail. And yes, I know, I think I did miss out on like a Pale Ore or 2, like mentioning them, but you gotta understand, going through all this footage is honestly a bit of a pain, and I don't remember exactly where all the pieces are. But with that, our nail is finally complete, landing us another achievement. Now that we've completed the City of Tears though, it's about time that we descend into Abyss. Even though we are missing 2 things at the moment, we can come back later. But we also may as well go back through the sewers on the way to deal with the White Defender, since we still need enough Dream Essence, or whatever it's called, to get all of Seer's rewards and the Awaken to Dream Nail, so we can access the White Palace and the True Ending. At least, I think that's one of the things we need for a True Ending. Then we descend into Abyss so we can get the Shade Cloak, which lets us access more areas, like dealing with Markov in Kingdom's Edge, which I did do first. and so we can access our final area, Queen's Garden, while dealing with two things on the way, being No Eyes in Green Path and going to the Howling Wraith spell, which we could have got way earlier, but I completely forgot it was in the Fogger Canyon somehow. But anyway, after reaching the Queen's Station, we traverse through it normally since this is probably one of the most linear areas in the game. Like, after beating Marmu, the best boss in the game, we unlock the Queen's Station, which then unlocks us the Stag Station since we unlocked every station, and we can get a free vessel shard. Then from here, I actually remembered that I still have all the Grim Troop stuff to do, so I just decided to do their whole questline from here, while also doing the rest of the stuff in the Abyss, since one of the Grim enemies was nearby. So that means doing the Lifeblood Door to get the Lifeblood Core Charm, and our Howling Wraith spell. I do wish that I did this later, because there's actually one more thing that we have to do in the Abyss, but, you know, I just decided to do it while we were here. Along with another thing, which was the White Palace, since we now had enough essence after Marmu and having the Hive Blood Charm, which makes this so much easier, netting us one half of the King's Soul. Then after this, I started to freak out a bit since I didn't actually know how to banish the Grim Troop, and Brum was nowhere to be found. I mean, look at this. He isn't anywhere on the map at all, and I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be at this point, so I did have to search it up only to find out that he's in this little room in the Spider Village. So after talking to him, I could finally banish the Grim Troop from Hollowness, landing us our final side achievement, and a new friend in Dirtmouth. So with us being done with the Grim Troop, it's time to complete everything in Queen's Gardens. So getting the other half of the King's Soul, defeating the Trader Lord, Rip Cloth, you were a real one, and finally getting our last 2 grubs. With all that done though, we're in the final stretch of the game. We only have to do 2 more things before fighting the final boss, and that is getting our last charm, which I completely forgot about, being the Glowing Womb charm, and going into Abyss to do one of the best moments in the game, and getting the Void Heart, granting us access to the final boss. And with doing everything there is besides a few things, it's finally time to venture to the Black Egg and fight the Hollow Knight, who is just a complete pushover at this point since we learned how to fight him in the 5-hour speedrun, plus now we have all the equipment that we could possibly need. So we just need to fight him until Hornet comes in and stuns him, tells us to get good, so we can dream nail them and fight the actual final boss, the Radiance. Now, I somehow forgot, the Radiance is honestly a really annoying boss with how much it teleports around while summoning all kinds of nonsense, from spikes that reset you to flying nails from across the screen, and not to mention, all of their attacks also do 2 damage, so this fight can absolutely mess you up if you're not careful. Plus, this is one of the only dreams in the game where you can actually die in for real, so I did in fact have to reset more than a few times, especially in the second phase, since there's no longer any solid ground to stay on and it turns into a real platformer, which is really fun. Oh yeah, I had so much fun in this phase, oh yeah. But eventually, the time to complete this part of the challenge arrived, since once you reach the 3rd phase, it's practically a free win. Get all the nightmares away from the over. Up over Get down here! Get down here! That's it. It's time to finish this. Get over nightmares. Screw you, Radiance. Screw you. I honestly wasn't stuck on you for that long, but screw you, man. I'm not someone who gets like really pumped up, but like I'm like, oh, it's finally over. Like that's the kind of person I am. I'm not like jump out of my chair like whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, if I'm going to be completely honest, this challenge of 100% in the game really isn't that difficult at all, since, well, we have to collect everything. And I know that might sound a little stupid, like, duh, no shit, dumbass. But seriously, getting something like the Fragile Heart so early on makes this run easy as hell, since you can make so many mistakes, and I mean, you can also reset if you need to, but besides fighting the Radiants, I only reset like twice. One was at Nosk, because I completely forgot how the fight went and choked really hard. And I don't remember where the second one was, but I'm pretty sure it happened. The only thing you really need to know about this challenge is where everything is. And even if I didn't use the map, which I used quite a bit, I still could have easily done it without the map. Oh, and speaking of the map, because I had so much geo, I ended up just buying everything from Iselda before doing the Grim stuff to know where they all were. Plus the remaining grubs, since we got the little thing after defeating the Collector, which I forgot to mention. I mean, the run only took 9 hours and 40 minutes with a percentage of 102%, so I didn't even need to fight the Radiants, which did make me a bit sad, but since it was a whole hour wasted. But what I'm saying is, without the map, it honestly would have taken maybe a quarter or double the time. It is so doable. Like, I was worried about it for nothing. With that being said though, this was still a really fun challenge to do. I mean, going through all of Hollow Nest again and redoing some of the greatest moments in this game, like getting the Void Heart and revisiting these gorgeous areas while fighting some of my favorite bosses again, like the Mantis Lords, was really fun. And it just kept reminding me why this is one of my favorite games of all time. And with that being said and done, it's finally time to return to my original save and get our final achievement by ascending through the gods of Hollow Nest and claiming my place at the top of the 5th Pantheon. Before we get into the actual challenge though, I want to talk a bit about what Godmaster is first, since there is a bit more to it than just simply being a boss rush. For example, before we can even access the 5th Pantheon, we have to clear the first 4, which have a selection of different bosses while also ramping up in difficulty, and also introducing new bosses at the end of each trial, which are also all characters that we already know. In the first trial, we got Nail Master Oro, who then gets assistance from Mato, who joins him later in the fight, with both of them having the same moveset other than their own nail arts, being the dash slash and the whirlwind. In the second, we have Paint Master Shio, who is a personal favourite of mine with the arena getting coloured as the fight goes on. Then we have Nail Sage Sly, who we'll get back to later. And finally, the Pure Vessel, aka the Hollow Knight in his prime. Also, if you want, you can also do the challenges on them, which is just locking the upgrades of your choice, something I obviously never did myself. The other really cool thing I love about Godmaster though is the training room, where you can fight or train against any boss you desire, which is really handy since some of them are a major pain in the ass the first time around you fight them. So just being able to go in and practice against the final boss in the 5th Pantheon, for example, instead of fighting it through everything first is really great. And you can also select the difficulty of them as well, like making it so you die in one hit, which is really neat. Other than that, there's also the story and lore of Godmaster, but I don't really recall any of it, so unfortunately we are going to move past it so we can get on with our challenge of beating the 5th Pantheon. Now, if you thought this was hard enough already, fighting every boss in a row, or not since most of them are easy, it in fact does get even harder as Team Cherry actually took the time to also change up some of the bosses as well to make it a bit more difficult, like including spikes in the Gruz fight, platforms in the Zero fight, making it so you fight all 3 Mantis Lords at once, which is really cool by the way. Or the worst change being no flaw in the Markov fight, which is extremely evil of Team Cherry to do. I mean, seriously, that fight sucks so much, and I really hate it with a passion. But on the other hand, they're also pretty generous, since we get a rest room every 5 rooms or so to recuperate and change up our charms if we want, which is honestly really nice of them. Speaking of charms though, one of the problems that caused many failed attempts were my builds, since I didn't know what charms I wanted, and I thought the build I left off with on this save was good, so I ended up sticking with it for a while. Unfortunately, I don't remember what the build was, and most of the charms I used, since I don't have the footage of my early attempts because I really just needed space on my hard drive, so I had to delete them. Luckily, I do remember some of the charms that I tried to stick with though, like Sharp Shadow, which damages enemies when you dash through them with increased distance. I do like this charm, but the increased dash distance messed me up a lot since I'm so used to the normal distance, especially when you go through most of the game with it, and the damage it does is just not that great, so you're honestly better just switching to something else since it also takes up 2 notches. There were also the summon charms I tried, like Weaver Song, but quickly abandoned those when they interrupted a boss getting stunned, so I couldn't heal or take a break if needed to. Passive damage charms, like Thorn of Agony, since I kept getting hit in my early runs. I also remember Defender's Crest being one I stuck with for way too long because of some bosses, and basically all it does is leave a trail that damages enemies, but yeah, it's just not worth it. And the last one I remember is that I tried Soul Catcher and Shaman Stone, but with a fully upgraded nail, I just don't use the spells as much, especially because of the other charms I had, leading us into my final build, which is just entirely focused on nail damage and my own skill, with just a little bit of survival. So we got the Strength Charm for nail damage, Heart for some more health, Quick Slash for attack speed, and Mark of Pride, so I had more reach, and didn't have to be up as close. And honestly, once I had decided on this build, the runs went so much smoother. Like, you wouldn't believe how much easier it got once I used this build. Of course, I also got better at handling every boss with all those failed attempts. But now that I've gone over the charms, we can get into our last topic, being what bosses I actually had trouble with, since 95% of them I just ended up steamrolling through, so explaining every boss would be a giant waste of time, and why I haven't really talked about the 5th Pantheon yet. So we'll just focus on the ones I struggled with a bit, which actually only starts over halfway through the challenge. Now, this first one might be a bit surprising, but it is in fact a winged Nosk. And I say surprising because it's basically just a glorified Vengefly King, except for its 2 attacks where it sprays acid across the arena and from the ceiling. So you're probably wondering, why did I struggle so much with this boss particularly? Well, mostly because I'm stupid and just wasn't paying the acid any mind, so not looking where it's gonna land or just paying attention to the pattern, so I'd always get hit or walk into it. Plus, I was trying to rush through the challenge as fast as possible, so I would also try and pogo on it like I do with Vengefly, but the hitbox or something on it was really weird, so I couldn't pogo and kept getting hit. Basically, I just wasn't learning the fight and bashing my head against a wall for about 15 or so attempts before going to a training area and learning that I should just calm down and take my time with it, since there isn't even a time on the boss rush to begin with. Thinking back, I don't know why I was rushing so much. But yeah, as soon as I laid back and actually took my time with this challenge, the fight became way easier. Then the second boss I struggled with just so happens to be the very next one after Nosk, and that's Nail Sage Sly, for a few reasons. One is, whenever I managed to beat Nosk when I was struggling with it, since I would always be on low health, and fighting Sly when you're not used to him is not fun at all, since he's a fast little guy with a lot of reach, so I would also always get hit whenever I tried to get my own hits in, since I couldn't back off in time. So you can probably guess that Sly is the reason I put Mark of Pride on in the first place. And yeah, that made the fight way easier, especially when I wasn't on low health after learning Nosk. But after Sly, we have a bit of smooth sailing for a little bit until we get to Grey Prince Hazard, who I actually only bring up because of how much I've seen people say how difficult and awful he is, but honestly, he's not that bad. I barely struggled against him in the majority of the runs. The only thing I really struggled with from him for a bit was the move where he drops from the ceiling because I wasn't used to its tracking. But after Grey Prince Hazard, we only have like 3-4 bosses left. It's actually been a while since I played after this, but now they're towards the end of the run and we're fighting Nightmare King Grim, who I don't actually struggle with at all. I just wanted to bring him up since it's my favorite fight in the game with how fast paced and just fun it is, which also applies to our next boss, who is the Pure Vessel, which isn't that difficult from a Hollow Knight since his infected moves are now just nails, and the only moves he gets are the bowls, which are easy to dodge, and the big void arm, which is also really easy to avoid. I will admit that I did choke pretty hard in a successful one run and almost failed, as you can see. But yeah, after beating the Hollow Knight, we reach, of course, the hardest part about the whole Pantheon, the final boss, which is the Absolute Radiance. And if you thought that I didn't like normal Radiance, you can imagine how much I dislike this version since, well, honestly, I think the footage speaks for itself, or maybe it doesn't since playing and watching are completely separate things. Anyway, it's literally just a Radiance but on crack, and learning the fight this time around is so much harder since it felt like it depended on whether or not I got good RNG sometimes, since its teleporting is completely random and just feels like bullshit sometimes, since it could just hover over the spikes on the far end of the arena. Like, this happened one attempt for like 2 minutes straight. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage anymore, but seriously, it's just so bad sometimes. And not to mention how fast its attacks are as well. But most of them honestly aren't that difficult to dodge once you get used to the timing and rhythm of the fight, obviously. But man, I was stuck on this guy for so long. The main problems I had with the fight, though, was, of course, one, the teleporting RNG, but also the flying nails across the screen, especially in Phase 2 because of the platforming, and the positioning is just weird sometimes. My main problem with Absolute Radiance is this damn light ball attack because of the tracking on them, which took me ages to get used to. But also because sometimes it's just straight up impossible to see them because they blend into the damn background. Like, what? I hate these damn stupid balls so much. This whole fight is such a pain. It's not fun. It's just not a fun fight. I was stuck on this boss in the training range for so damn long until I could consistently defeat it. Consistently. And that took so long. Especially the second and third phase, since the last phase is no longer a free win, which I will say is honestly good, but at the same time, I have to deal with those damn stupid balls again. It's just... the whole third phase is just those balls. And the second phase, like with the platforming and teleporting, oh my god. But eventually, once I was confident enough with the fight after who knows how long, honestly, I wish I counted the attempts, but it would have easily been over like 100 or something. Like, I hate this fight so much. But with that, it was time to finally complete this damn Pantheon and this whole video challenge together. I did it! I did it! Oh my god! Oh my god, I did it! That break actually saved me. I can't believe I finally did it. Oh my god. Oh, I remember seeing this like ages ago when looking at all the endings, and now I'm seeing it for myself. Get it, yes! I claim victory! Oh my god! That break, like, oh my god. I'm so glad I took that like 5-minute break. Actually, like, it saved my life. Oh my god. Oh, man. What a good game. What a good game. And that's it. With that, I have finally gotten the rest of the achievements and 100%ed Hollow Knight after all these years, which is honestly such a great feeling, especially with how we ended it. We got the speedrun to see how fast I can personally complete the game while also relearning it. Then we get to 100% it, so going through all of Hollow Nest again, which I've already mentioned is great to see every area again, and finishing the whole thing off by fighting every single boss in the 5th Pantheon. It's a great feeling. And I'm glad I decided to finally do it because, as I said earlier in the video, going through this game again just cements its place as one of my favorite games of all time. And honestly, I don't have too much more to say. Or more like, what do I say? I've pretty much said all I wanted to, plus I'm just terrible at putting my thoughts together. But I think I'm finally done with Hollow Knight. Well, no, I think I will play it at least one more time before Silksong gets released, if it doesn't get shadow dropped, that is. So I guess for the time being, I'm just going to be waiting for Silksong, which of course I'm really excited for, but at the same time I am gonna keep my hopes down since I've been burned in the past by hyping up a game too much. In fact, I did a whole video about it because Borderlands 3 was such a giant disappointment, but that doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Basically what I'm trying to say is, just try to keep your expectations low just in case. Personally, I do think it'll be great because of how much time we've spent on it, but constantly seeing people say Silksong when any Nintendo Direct or show comes up all these years makes me feel like people are building up these unrealistic expectations and whatnot. Like, I get that people can be excited, but seriously, I'm so sick of seeing Silksong this and that all the damn time. Like, there's even articles, like, after a Nintendo Direct saying, there was no Silksong. Like, seriously? But to sum everything up, this challenge was great. Running through the whole game again, relearning it, amazing. Beating the 5th Pantheon, incredible. And I'm excited for Silksong while keeping low expectations, so when it is good, I'll be happy. And if it's bad, I won't be as distraught as I was with BL3. So with that, if you got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, and I don't know, comment what your favorite thing is about Hollow Knight, or what you want to see come out of Silksong. And with that, bye-bye everyone!